Hello, hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Sammy, the Spanish God. And you, yes, you are wrestling to A to the K WrestleTalk, which you can go subscribe on the YouTube channel. You can go to their Spotify, etc. Listen to the podcast. Make sure you to subscribe, enjoy. I mean, let's be honest. They just got a shout out from me, so they must be somewhat decent. I know they're somewhat smart because they could have got a shout out from someone else like Marco Stunt, but instead they got it from me, and I am a god, a Spanish god. So these guys are awesome in my book. So far, I've actually never listened to them, but maybe I'll go check them out soon. Maybe. I'm trying to clean my place right now, but regardless, this is a bunch of useless information. Why am I telling you that? Regardless, make sure to subscribe, and please put this entire shout out in because I would love to hear where I'm talking about cleaning my place.
So, before we move on to our segment 3, which will be talking about the Money in the Bank, how we feel about the finish and the results. We'll move on to segment 2 and we'll talk about we'll go through the Ringside Report. We'll talk about the news and rumours and various bits and bobs that we have for you. So I'm going to start with 2, and then I believe you've got 2 there, Carl. That I hope you talk about them because one of them I'm not too clued up on. Well, the first one I want to mention is, and this because I've gotten into my Twitter lately, as you know, representing A to the K. And one of the things that have come out was Tom Segura. Are you familiar with Tom Segura, Carl? I hope I'm saying his last name.
Not by name.
No worries. You might have heard him before, Carl, because this chap, I'm a big fan of. And not necessarily all his works, but I'm certainly a big fan of his podcast. And certainly when we started doing this podcast, it was one I sent you. And he does a podcast with Bert Kreischer, which is called Two Bears, One Cave.
Okay.
And they're both very funny men, very funny comedians. They play off each other really well. And, he is a comedian by trade. Now, in a podcast he was doing, which wasn't Two Bears, One Cave, it was a different podcast, which I'm not overly familiar with. He made some controversial comments about the wrestling fan base and basically said that if you're older than 10 and into wrestling, you're retarded. And went on to a bit of a rant as to basically that you're stupid, it's totally fake, blah blah blah. And that was the clip he put up. He put up that clip on Twitter, and it took a massive backlash. And people were getting so up in arms about it. And then I don't know the exact time, but I want to say about 20 minutes later, he put the rest of the clip up. So it wasn't like he backpedaled because this was all one show, right? If you'd listened to the show, you'd have been there, do you know what I mean? But he just put the clips up separately to wind people up. But then he subsequently put up another clip in which he's going, basically, of course I'm kidding. I know why people love wrestling. I love wrestling, blah, blah, blah. It's like soap operas for men, like that sort of thing. So it was his sort of joke, right? But the backlash it took, and people still now are only watching one half of it and giving him a load of shit for it. But it's turned into a bit of a fun thing now because he's had various wrestlers engage with him as well. But yeah, it hit the sort of the Ringside Report for me because I must admit, when I first saw the clip, I was like, that's a bit fucking rich, Jesus. But it ended up that he was just going for a bit of humor. And to be fair, a lot of people probably don't get why it's funny to him. And, for me, I'm like, okay, I don't particularly get why it's amusing to say that all wrestling fans are retarded to then turn around and go, I'm only kidding. But, he was going for a bit of banter. And the back and forth he's had like back and forth with Dolph Ziggler and such since. So it's clearly all just been a bit of playful, bit of a work. But have you seen any of this? Have you seen any of the backlash or any of the links or anything like that?
I've literally not seen any of it at all. I've just clicked on the link. Then I'm just seeing seen Corbin as I replied to.
Yeah, Corbin. I don't. Again, you wonder though. You go, is that like? I sort of love about these things because is Corbin playing it, or is he a wrestler who doesn't happen to know Tom Segura and has took it seriously? I don't know. So it makes for a lot of fun. Anyone who's interested, just jump onto Twitter, have a look for Tom Segura, however you want to pronounce it, and just have a look at these tweets, these back and forths, because if nothing else, it'll just make for a bit of interesting reading for you. So the next one I want to mention, Carl, touching back onto Dynamite, was again another thing that's come from Twitter because that's where I live at the minute. Was the segment with Jake the Snake, with Jake placing his snake on Brandy. Seems to have been blown somewhat out of proportion on the old social media. People almost liken it to like sexual assault and the way he was sort of leaning over Brandy and an unconscious woman and all this kind of stuff. And I don't mean to downplay it. You know, sexual assault is not funny, but at the end of the day, if this was a bloke who'd been knocked out and Jake done his usual snaky stuff, there wouldn't be a comment or a thingy. Do you know what I mean? And he's not a sex pest. It's a storyline. Brandy was not unconscious and she was totally aware what was going on. So I think they're just getting proper way too up in arms about it. But basically, a lot of them are like, it's not the sort of thing that they should be putting on the TV. And I'm like, at the end of the day, it's fictional. You know, the storylines are fictional, and it's what Jake has always done. And we apparently live in a world of equality now, and he's done it many a time to a bloke. So I don't get the difference.
This is what I don't understand. It's like 1 minute, it's like, oh no, we're all for equality and, you know, women's power and women are equal to men. What, you know, whatever people's stances are, you know, fair play. But then to get all up in arms and be like, how can he be, you know, lying over a woman? And it's like, well, hang on, you can't have it both ways. Do you know what I mean? Either you're offended by it and that's because you feel like women are portrayed a certain way, or, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like we said before, like, people are just never happy with anything. Like, even if they would have been leaning over at like a bloke or something like that, you know, people probably would have been all up in arms on that. You know, I saw some stuff around, you know, just, you know, he may have stood on Snake's head at the end a little bit and stuff like that. And it's like, okay, like who fucking cares? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, is the Snake like really, you know, is he going to have to leave show business now? Is he, you know, fucking scarred and tortured from this event? You know, it's just, I don't know. People just like to moan and just cause controversy out of nothing. Like,
yeah.
the segment
that's the thing.
itself.
It's purely like they're looking for something. It's like that, like you say with the snake. It's like, oh, animal cruelty. It's not. It's an accident. You know.
Yeah.
And like this with Brandy, like the reality of it is, it's a scripted story. Brandy has signed off on this story. She is not an actual unconscious woman that is being laid over by a creepy man with a snake, right? If that was the case, and if you were, let's be honest, if you were, I would even have more sympathy, right? Social media, if you were thick as fuck and you thought it was real. We still get people who go, oh, it's real. It's not. It's not fucking real. It's scripted, right? I'm not going to go, oh, it's fake, like people do. You know, people take bumps and it fucking hurts. It's scripted. And Brandy signed off on all that. And that's I want to raise it because I'm like, how is this even controversial? She's had the say on whether she wants to do the storyline or not. And to me, that just shows that the world we're living in now, she's right. It's not 1991 anymore. We can do a storyline like this because we live in a world of equality.
I mean, that's it. But even back in like 1991, where he'd pull the same kind of shit on Miss Elizabeth or something when he was feuding with Macho Man.
Yeah.
And
Well, yeah,
you know
fair
what I
point,
mean?
actually.
Like, fair dues, we didn't have Twitter back then, and maybe some people were fucking all up in arms and stuff like that. You know, obviously these things were a lot more visible and apparent in today's world. But you know, I don't really recall anyone kind of reacting to that as going, "Oh my God, poor Miss Elizabeth," and but like, you know what I mean? It was just even back then, it was fine. So like, what is it with this whole fucking, you know, everyone has to be offended by everything thing? It's just like, just get over it. It's TV.
Yeah, I think that's the problem though. The world's full of like, oh, that offends me, and the reality of it is, okay, be offended. Like,
That's it.
you know, sadly, that it is what it is. You know, some people get offended by things and some people don't, and sadly, they can't cater to everybody. So, you know, basically, take your offense. And well, I might offend you, so I won't say it anymore. So I know you've put one on, Carl. So I don't know if you want to go through this next one.
Yeah, so this next one was so the Undertaker has revealed that he was absolutely disgusted at his match with Roman Reigns at WrestleMania. You know, I was watching his part one of the Last Ride documentary on WWE Network, which you can subscribe to for $9.99. And yeah, it's so weird seeing Mark Calloway, the person, and how he kind of conducts himself and carries himself in the backstage setting. It's not as I expected, to be fair. He's a lot more, I don't know. It's, you know what I mean? Like, you think of the Undertaker and as though he's like a really silent kind of, you know, quiet dude and stuff like that. But he just seems like really silly and playful and things like that. But he opened up, basically saying that he can't watch his matches back because every time he watches them back, he's never really happy with them. But he said that, you know, he finally watched back the match with him and Roman Reigns and just said he felt absolutely disgusted by it. He said it was the worst he'd ever seen himself in the ring, and he felt like he shouldn't have been in the ring that night, and he felt really hard on himself because it was his job to put Roman over and kind of give him a really good match, and he felt like he let himself down, and he let Roman down, and he let Vince down, stuff like that. So I thought it was quite a candid look into kind of his thoughts on it, and in the benefit of hindsight, like, looking back on it, I didn't think it was that bad of a match. Like, he was limping a little bit more, and his hip was, clearly causing him some trouble and stuff like that. But
Well, he subsequently had an op on it, didn't he? So,
well,
it clearly
exactly.
was.
But like, I mean, I can only really recall like one major botch from the whole match, and that was the failed tombstone bit where Roman was meant to pick him up for the tombstone but couldn't lift him. So
That's
I
on
mean,
Roman.
exactly. So I don't really know why he felt that way, but it's just, I don't know, like, seeing him as Mark Kane, that the end is definitely looming. If he has only got like one or at most two WrestleManias or big moments left in him, it's kind of sobering to see like how he feels about the business and stuff like that. It's if you've not seen it, I definitely recommend that you watch it. I think only the first part's out at the minute, but I was blown away by it. I watched it last night, and yeah, it was just really good.
And where can you find that again? Sorry.
On WWE Network for $9.99.
$9.99. And what happens if I sign up today, Carl?
If you sign up today, you get the first month free. You can enjoy such things as Money in the Bank and hours of every WWE pay ever.
And joking aside, you can actually go right back to the first Raw. Like, you might get bored of it after a while, but certainly sign up for the free trial. There's your slogan.
That should be the new slogan, shouldn't it? You'll get bored after a while, but sign up for the free trial. Love it.
But no, it's one I've not seen yet. But I'll have to have a watch. It's certainly intriguing. Obviously, I love the Undertaker, so I need to see a different side of the man. Yeah,
it's definitely good.
I think the next one's yours as well, now.
Yeah, so this one I found just made me laugh. So at WrestleMania, obviously we know that Gronk ended up winning the 24/7 title. And in order to do that, he did like a jump off the balcony where he was hosting the match and kind of landed on everybody and ended up picking up the title. But apparently it's been revealed now that he was kind of shit scared to do the jump. And so it was actually Vince McMahon who did it himself to show Gronk that he had nothing to kind of be afraid of. And, this guy at, 70, maybe even in his 70s at this point is, jumping off a fucking balcony onto people. He's just a crazy motherfucker.
Yeah, truly. I think he's he must be like 76 or something at this point. I lose track of his age, I'll be honest with you, but he's way too old to be doing shit like that. He's a lunatic.
Yeah,
but,
it's the most Vince thing ever, though, isn't it? Like when you hear stuff like that, you're like, yeah, sounds like something Vince would do. Like, literally, that guy is just. I can see him still taking fucking bumps or something at like a WrestleMania or something until he, pops his.
This is a man who power walked so hard his quads gave out.
That's it.
There's no one quite like Vince.
Even his quads couldn't handle him. He went over his quads that night, I tell you.
Yeah, I'll never forget that.
A small snippet, but just one that I just think is fucking brilliant. Like Vince McMahon, 70-odd years old, just going, it's okay, Gronk, I'll show you that it's fine. I'll do a jump off a fucking balcony, stop being a little bitch. It's like the most Vince thing ever.
Yeah, totally agree.
And then I think another one of mine. So this one, I don't know how much of a stretch this is or how much of a reach it is, but I believe there's a lot of speculation now that both Zack Ryder and Kurt Hawkins are on their way to AEW. So they've signed up the services of a guy called Michael Dawkins, who's like a paralegal, or he's got some sort of lawyer or whatever, but yeah, specializes in copyrights. And apparently he handles all the kind of trademarking and filings and stuff for, all the AEW stars. So everyone's kind of putting two and two together and getting five. But
I mean, to be fair, that coupled with the fact that both Jim Ross and Cody have both said that Ryder would be one person they'd love to sign, it could spell that maybe that, certainly for Ryder. And he could have brought Hawkins along with him, but it's a good sign. Like you say, you can't really go, well, that's a definite. It's up there. We're going, CM Punk's coming back because of this. It's an interesting one. And I sincerely hope they do sign with AEW, I'll be honest.
Yeah, I mean, not so much Hawkins or Brian Myers,
okay,
whatever
bring
his
him
name
too.
is, but I don't know. Like, it sounds really shitty of me to say that, but I wouldn't be excited if they signed him because I've not really seen anything from him. That being said, happy to have my mind changed, but I do think Ryder, at one point in time, I'm not sure who said this. It might have been Cody, but if you've ever been over in the wrestling business and you've ever had fans get behind you, then you can get over again. It's not like, what I mean? You don't get over by accident as a one-off. Like, if you've gotten over, you have the ability to get over. So I feel like WWE stifled Ryder's ability to do that by just not letting him do the stuff he wanted to do. So hopefully, if he has a little bit more creative freedom, he'll do well there. No offense
I
to
agree.
Sean Spears either, but sometimes having extra creative freedom doesn't necessarily work out fantastically for you. But fingers crossed for the guy.
No, I mean, again, it's purely speculation, but we know Rad Is Creative. He built himself up. He done his, what did he call it? Like True Hollywood Story or something like that. But he done his own thing, his own YouTube channel to get him over. And again, it's speculative, but it was almost as if he was being punished for that. If you consider some of the storylines he had in WWE, I can't quite remember the details of it, but if you might recall, he was like good friends with John Cena at one point, and then he was injured and in a wheelchair. And during that time, John Cena stole his girlfriend, and you're like, wow, that is a real fuck you to Zack Ryder. It's just some of the shit they put him through. It felt like they were trying to put him down. I don't know how true that he was loyal to the company for a long time, so maybe not, but he certainly had some poor fucking work to get through. And a lot of them have. Damien Sandow had a similar complaint about WWE that he had to work with some really shit gimmicks. Boxley is another one who said he had to work with some shit. So I'm sure he wasn't being targeted per se, but he is. I totally agree with you that he's been stifled. Right. Sorry, the next one is me, isn't it? Right. So I titled this one Seth Bitching, so I'll apologise for that because he's not quite bitching. But basically, he was being interviewed, and you can find it on talksport.com if you want to read the full interview, guys. But essentially, they were talking to him about his pending match with Drew and how it feels to now be in the situation he's in, where obviously not too long ago he was the up-and-comer and he was being put over and he was going through his first title run, and now he's on the other side of it, and he was quite fairly saying it's weird being on the sort of almost the veteran side of it and helping put someone over on their first run with the title. And I don't want to be unfair to him, but it almost sort of arrogantly was like, and hopefully Drew will learn something from him and stuff like that. And it's like, yeah, okay, sure. But during the interview, they talked about the Hell in a Cell situation with Bray Wyatt, and he basically cites that he feels like he was treated as a bit of a scapegoat for that situation. And nobody talks about how Rollins felt after it. Everyone moans about the match, and there's a lot of blame pointed towards Rollins, but he was not in control of the situation. And he was sort of damned if you do, damned if you don't. And he feels like he was sort of left like sort of dead in the water following that Hell in a Cell, which I'll be honest with you, not totally inaccurate. But I think this is basically where he feels he's had to change his character into what it is now, because essentially creative fucked him on that one. But that being said, I personally think they fucking ruined both of them because it did nothing for Bray either. But it's an interesting interview, and I said I titled it Seth Bitching because the typical clickbaity stuff is like that bit. Seth felt dead in the water for, and but the interview covers a fair bit more than that, and he's not being. He's not just going through the whole thing bitching, but that particular note is that it's just interesting to see that he was not happy with the Hell in a Cell match either. Have you read this one, Carl?
No, not really. I'm just trying to cast my mind back to exactly what even happened in the Hell in a Cell.
They done that sort of screwy finish, didn't he? Where it was like, did it go no contest or DQ or something stupid, or was it something like that where like Bray couldn't finish the match or something? Like it was weird the way they done it. I just remember a red fog. But yeah, it was. They booked it really strange because I think they were trying not to damage either of them, but ended up damaging both.
So when he's saying he felt like the scapegoat, like in what way?
I don't know if he just took a lot of the heat, a lot of the backlash because everyone was so behind Bray at the time. He sort of feels like when the criticism come along, it was aimed more at him than it was at Bray. It's like that was a shit result and it's Seth's fault, sort of thing. But the reality of it is it was Creative's fault, and most of us who are wrestling fans understand that, unless you're Baron Corbin, in which case it's your fault, Baron. But most of us understand that you're not in control of the storyline element. But I don't know. I think he almost felt like he took a lot of personal responsibility for the sort of the way it went down and the criticism the match took. But it's an interesting one. Anyway, I'd encourage anyone to have a read of the full interview on Talksport.com. And the last one I've got, which is not a bit of a somber one, really, but Alberto Del Rio, unfortunately or sadly, has recently been arrested over an alleged sexual assault. And I don't know if it was attempted injury or actual injury of a minor, which in any case is not good. But this has all been very recent as well. He was accused of beating a woman. And this was on the 3rd of May, so it was very, very recent. You can find this most anywhere if you want to Google it. But yeah, hopefully we've not had anything as to whether there's any truth to it or not yet. But it seems, the police have sort of arrested. So I imagine there's been some sort of evidence to that. And it's quite a serious one. I don't know where Del Rio has been career-wise since WWE, but it seems like he's not on a good path at the moment. Anyway, I think he made a bit of a stint in the UK for a while, but nevertheless, yeah, it's a strange one and a sad one, really.
It's a shame, really, to think of the guy. He was a former world champ. Obviously, it was quite, WWE were quite big on him at one point, and then, he's just been on a downward spiral.
I think he got the fans over at one point. He played a good heel, as I recall, when he was having his main title run. That sort of action is deplorable. I sincerely hope he hasn't actually done it, but it certainly seems like to be the case. But again, it's similar to the Velveteen Dream stuff. We always, we're not here to sort of say this definitely happened or try and sort of, add to the sort of mob with the pitchforks and flaming torches and whatever. It'll remain to be seen. But yeah, not the best, really. And I believe you have one more, do you, Carl?
So the last one's just more of an open-ended question for us to have a very brief chat about. But I noticed on SmackDown and also again at Money in the Bank, they continue to kind of put some stuff out there around whoever this hacker is. On SmackDown, kind of seem to allude to, they played a woman's voice who was basically saying that they're going to get what's coming to them or something like that. And then they kind of teased like the breakup of some sort of tag team. Looking into it, there's the potential that this isn't just one person now. It's like a group of people or maybe a faction. Like a lot of the stuff on the WWE, Twitter for the hacker and stuff is like, mentions us and we and things like that. So it's, right. I don't know really. So I think, way back when it seemed pretty black and white that it was going to be Ali. All the kind of signs pointed to him. So I still feel like that might be the case, but do we think that it is now some sort of faction? I know a lot of people seem to think it's somehow going to be CM Punk, which I really don't believe for a second.
Yeah, massively well known for his hacking skills, yeah.
Well, exactly.
Well, I mean, I'll start by saying, like, I'm still not a big fan of the whole hacker concept. It's a televised show. Most of what you're hacking and showing people is stuff we can see on the fucking camera anyway. And realistically, the other wrestlers could go home and watch it if they wanted to. So it's like when he was interfering, whoever this hacker was interfering with the Sonya Deville stuff. It's like, we already quite well established that there was stuff going on there and that Otis wasn't at fault. But apparently Mandy couldn't see that until the hacker put it up there. Found it really kind of odd. But nevertheless, is the suggestion then from this female audio that the faction's going to include a female?
Well, I'm not sure. So I think in terms of the female audio, I think it was less around the faction including a female, but more who the next kind of person to be exposed is going to be. It seemed like I think a few people have done some like analysis on the audio and stuff, and they kind of suggested it could be like Dana Brooke, or some people were suggesting Mickie James or Lacey Evans and people like that. Right. But I don't think it means they're going to be part of the faction necessarily, but I feel like the next target. But I know a lot of the stuff around like we and us and stuff like that kind of refers to it as, more than one individual.
So let's say, as an example, then we're confident it's Ali because of the symbolism there. Who would you put with Ali in the faction? Who's absent at the moment? Who would gel well with him?
Well, again, people who have been trying to analyze the audio and stuff, the belief is that they think they've been able to isolate 2 additional voices that have been used in the vignettes. So one of which would be Gable.
Okay.
And the other one, which seems interesting, would be Xavier Woods.
Oh, Xavier. How would that work then? In terms of
Exactly,
his...
because he's already part of the New Day, so I'm not really sure, to be fair. And it does seem like a very odd faction if it was them 3. But I don't know. I feel like, to your point, like the whole kind of hacker thing where, it's showing stuff that we already know is a bit shit. But if he kind of continue down the path of like he's got some sort of like voice message that he's been able to decode and is gonna, you know what I mean? Like I feel like the concept of like letting the truth come out and stuff like that, I do think could work. But the way, like, especially like the Mandy Rose stuff, where that just seemed a bit silly. But if they continue to go around it with like decent stuff that wouldn't have already been exposed to the camera and stuff like that, then I could see it being an interesting thing. But there's been loads of different bits and bobs of like it seems pretty cool, to be fair. Like a lot of people are looking into it, and there's loads of little Easter eggs. Like they put like coordinates in the videos or like different town names. Like one person has found in one of the videos there's like coordinates of Scotland and then coordinates of India. So they're basically saying that that's WWE's way of confirming that Drew McIntyre is going to feud with Jinder Mahal at one point. Stuff like that. So it's like people think there's loads of little like Easter eggs and tidbits.
Yeah, I'm right in saying they've actually done one with that location thing where the locations were like relevant to the hacker, like the names of the places were quite cryptic in a way.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. Like people keep like decoding them, but they're finding loads of different things. Like one of the locations apparently was something like Brooks, something else, and people were like, "Oh my God, Phil Brooks, CM Punk," and then I think that's where a lot of the CM Punk stuff kind of came about.
There'll be literally anything, right? And they'll hope it's CM Punk. They could try and do the gobbledygook again, Carl, and everyone will hope it's CM Punk in the egg.
I mean, I'd probably pop for that, to be fair.
Fair enough.
But yeah,
fair enough.
so I don't know, just more of it to see whether you had any thoughts on it as such, or whether you're actually even that invested in it. Because I think for me, I wasn't really, but like the more and more I've been looking into like all these little hidden things and messages, then I'm starting to get into it a bit more.
I mean, I'm probably still not all that into it just yet, and I'll be honest, the bits that are cool about it were exactly what they did with Chris Jericho. Do you remember on return number 2 or 3 when we spent weeks trying to decode what it all meant, and then it was save us Y2J ultimately, and then come back and he had that new finisher, the code breaker, and so on like that. I don't know, like this whole trying to figure the mystery out and this code thing kind of smacks of that for me. But I enjoy anything where they build it up like that. I mean, it falls into outside of the TV, so it's like they're giving you things on Twitter and they're giving you things to decode, and there's like certain map coordinates and stuff. That's pretty cool. But I don't know. I suppose I was a bit soured on the whole Mandy Rose thing because it's like, well, that's not really hacking, but okay, it didn't need it for their storyline, and I don't think they'll ever justify a reason why he targeted them anyway, or the mystery faction targeted them specifically initially. But hopefully they could go somewhere good with it, and depending on who they target next, it might invest me in it a bit more. And I think that's it for the Ringside Report there, Carl. You have any more?
Certainly is. No, none for me.
Awesome.